Great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
I'm glad to be here. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Where are you located on the planet?
Well, I'm really a New Yorker slash Connecticut person, but I'm in Florida now. My book is just launching, and so I'm doing an event at noon today.
Okay. What a timely topic with all of this weird stuff going on with gender and just things that are happening here in 2025 that are just weird. It's a very timely book.
Friendship has really shifted. I started this 7 years ago when my mother died. I realized what friends were there for me and what friends really weren't.
Yeah.
And so I decided to write this book. And then instead, I was under contract for several novels that I write under my pen name, my Palm Beach novels. And so by the time I went back to this 2 years ago, the world had changed so that it was actually a more interesting study because it's all about how divisive politics are and vaxing and values. If they're disparate, friends can't seem to stay friends. And then because of COVID, how did women really treat each other? When did you clean out your closet on those toxic friendships? So it ended up being a book about how empowered we are to leave unhealthy friendships.
But it's interesting too in this time period with kind of this war on women, the Handmaid's Tale kind of thing of restrictions of services and things that are happening. I think I was shocked during this election cycle that women didn't come out and vote more for them and what they need because there's been so many things that have been restricted. It's like we've rolled back 100 years in so many levels of humans on this planet.
I know it's really disturbing. Well, part of my life's work, this is my 14th nonfiction book, is about how women are positioned in a patriarchal culture. So, in a patriarchal culture, we are more acrobatic females, we have less voice. We aren't paid an equal amount for equal work. We know how it goes. There's still male supremacy everywhere we go. And so the idea that we aren't in healthy friendships is disturbing
Yeah.
because women need to really support one another. And if you don't have that with your female friends, where will you get it?
Yeah, there needs to be alliances. So let's get to the heart of how did you talk to me about your writing journey? Take me back to your childhood. How did this begin? Did you always want to be a writer? Were words always your friend? How did it happen?
Always, always. When I was like probably in first grade, I was writing little family newspapers in pencil on notepaper and giving it to my father and my uncle, hoping they would pay me for my work. So yeah, yeah. And I went to college at Sarah Lawrence and studied writing and was really lucky enough to have amazing mentors, Galway Kinnell, the poet, and Ed Doctorow, the novelist. And then went to Columbia, got married too young, had two kids at that point, woke up and said, I have to finish my degree. I had never quit anything.
Yeah.
So I went back to NYU and got my MFA. And then for the last, well, for 24 years until COVID, I taught in the writing department at Marymount Manhattan College. And my topic was gender because the way their critical thinking slash writing program was devised, you had to have a topic. So I taught gender studies in a writing program when gender studies really was about looking at prescribed roles for male and female behavior in contemporary culture and historically. But now it's a much different kind of course.
It's interesting in this modern day and era, there's all of this noise about, you know, the Democrats or progressives or however you want to term it have pushed DEI and gender studies and all of these things to a point that's turned people off to find us in this reversion of all of these things. I don't see it that way. I don't understand how the consciousness has evolved or devolved to this point. From your perspective of spearheading this so early on, How have we gotten to this point? We're doing things logically, like illuminating things like gender and things like that. How did it get demonized?
It's really interesting because what I was teaching, where we really looked at how men and women are interpreted in society for a long time, and definitely contemporary culture, was a lot to learn in itself
Yeah.
before the new spin came about. So, just what is bias against women? Why did it take so long? I mean, we've only had the right to vote for what, 105 years?
Yeah.
So just looking at how women have been treated was plenty to learn. And my life's work is to look for how women have voice and agency, and why we so often aren't in a good place in relationships. So I've written 3 books on the role of wife in America. And I've written a book on female rivalry called Tripping the Prom Queen, and a book on mothers and daughters called You're Grounded Forever, but First Let's Go Shopping, and a book on female friendship that came out before the idea that we can be estranged and do it in a positive manner, and that was called Toxic Friends. And then mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law, and all of the way, a book. I did a whole study on female infidelity that became an iHeart podcast. That was my longest study. So always looking at how women feel versus the faces they have to put forth.
Well, who's been your inspiration to have this level of conviction to continue to write and to teach and to do all of this? Who has been that heroic force for you?
Well, I always looked at my mother and my father in a very, like, mid-century marriage. And I thought, she's so smart and she's so capable, and she doesn't get a chance.
Yeah.
I mean, and that was that generation. And I also came of age at a time when there was this heightened awareness, in the 80s, when we all started in the workforce, women were out in the workforce as they'd never been before. And that was a really exciting time. So I was really looking at the changes and how women feel within the constraints that still exist.
So, what's been one of your favorite fan letters that you've received from your books? Is there one that like rises up that was a triumphant letter?
Well, for my fiction, women have written to me and have been at events and said to me, I can so relate to what these women kept secret. I can so relate to what happened to this, to Lucinda, to Maribel, to my characters. For the nonfiction, because for those books, including Estranged, I interview usually between 150 to 300 women for the book. And then I try to do a questionnaire. This book has a questionnaire, so that was another 111 women in this book. And the women are diverse in terms of age, from 20 to 80 in this study. So age, race, ethnicity, level of education, religion. They live in cities, suburbs, rural areas, small towns. And what's so interesting is, if you don't like your mother-in-law, your boss is sexist, your best friend is not really kind to you, you're unhappy in your marriage, your 16-year-old daughter or granddaughter is troubling and dabbling in things she shouldn't, it really doesn't matter if you went to Harvard and have an MBA or you barely got out of high school. These are the emotional issues and the longings that we all experience as females. And how about the women? I've interviewed so many women who choose not to be married, choose not to have children. Why is there still a kind of judgment about that? Because women are judged. You get divorced, you're judged. You're widowed, you're kind of pushed to the side. So why aren't we all working together
Yeah.
to have the best friendships and relationships we can? And that brings me to Estranged, Joe, because in this book, I'm not interviewing women about the friend you walk 3 miles with, the friend in the bowling league, the friend at work for lunch on occasion. I'm looking at the closest
Yep.
friendships where we tell all, experience this person as our safety net. And when that falls apart and changes, what happens?
What did you, so the one thing about your books is that you're writing to, you're putting this out to the world and inspiring people, and you're giving them, you know, a lot to think about. But you're the one that's writing this, and it's inevitably going to change you. There's going to be a level of this that you're going to have revelations. What did you discover about yourself in the process of writing this book?
How much we're not alone, how much we're really in it together, how much women aspire to the glittering prizes, education, enough financial stability in a capitalistic society, partner, husband, if you choose, children, if you choose, materialism, such a message in this culture. I mean, I had scholarship students who had jobs along with being at the college who only wanted the real Gucci bag, not one off this, not one that you saw on the street being sold. Why? Because the cultural messaging is
Yeah.
so pervasive and persuasive.
Yeah.
So what we're looking at is, where we're really safe and what really works for us. So in each study, I was looking to see how women really feel, knowing how I feel. And for instance, when I was 23 and a very young woman getting married, I went to the Barnes and Noble and looked for a book on mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law. Couldn't find it, totally needed it.
Yeah.
And so after 3 children and many years with a mother-in-law I so admired but found very difficult at times, I did my own study. So there is how it works, and learned so much about how other women felt.
What was the first book that you read that really made you think this is what I want to do with my life? Was there a book, a moment like that?
Little Women,
Okay. Okay.
those sisters, the mother, the strength during wartime, the fact that a female writer had done so well with it.
Have you read Miranda July?
I have,
She's so
I have.
good. I just,
She's really good. She's really good.
yeah, I just finished her latest book, which is getting all kinds of reviews, and she is just hilarious. She's like reading Billy Collins poetry. I have to stop for a minute and breathe because it's like so much is coming at you.
Yes, but she really touches a chord, and she's touching on what really she's doing.
Yeah,
She's noting and writing about what's really happening.
yeah, yeah,
And that goes back to what I said a few minutes ago, how we present versus what we really feel and are capable of.
yeah.
And how we're treated for what we yearn for.
So, what's the last good book that you read that you just could not put down?
Well, I run a book club here, and we've done some very good books this season. And I just finished a book called Leaving by Roxana Robinson.
Okay,
And I thought that she did a very good job. And I also thought that Husbands and Lovers by Beatrice Williams was very good.
okay,
And all of the books that we've read.
yeah,
And every year or two, I reread Thomas Mann's novel called Buddenbrooks
uh-huh,
because it's so brilliant. It's about a family. I think that a few of the versions actually have a subtitle for a novel, which you wouldn't see today.
yeah,
And it's called The Decline. The subtitle is The Decline of a Family.
yeah.
And the idea that he was maybe 26 when he wrote it is probably as impressive as the book.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. If you had a dream tonight and ran into the 18-year-old version of you, you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on this life you've led, the wisdom you've accumulated. What advice would you impart?
To my 18-year-old self,
Yeah.
Beware of your idealism. Beware of how much more nuanced and unkind the world is.
Yeah. So, of all of these things that you've accomplished and the lives you've touched and the evolution you've gone through as a human being, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
What do I ultimately, I'm sorry,
What are you ultimately the proudest of? That what ultimately the proudest of?
proudest?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
I'm, it's really a good question, a poignant question. I'm very proud of my work. I knew very early on that I wanted to see what could be available to women. Women's studies worked for me in college. And I remember I once took a course on women in the law. And I'm proud of uncovering how women feel and being able, really privileged enough to talk to the women who, are my interviewees. Remember, all the identifying characteristics are changed. So with that comes really this freedom to express oneself. So I'm very happy with that. And of course, my family.
Yeah, for sure. So, what has been the most surprising thing from your dream early on in life of being a writer to being a writer and doing very well? What has been the most surprising thing about this life of being a writer that you didn't expect was going to happen?
Writing is truly a business. And when you're the writer and you're writing, you're under contract. And this is my 18th book in total. So, lots of contracts, thank God.
Yeah.
You are really in your own head. If it's a nonfiction project, I'm researching because I look at pop psychology, I look at real research, I have the interviews, so I'm interviewing. I look at famous women who, in this for Estranged, who became estranged, friendships. I look at it all and I'm really in my own mind and head and thinking all the time. For fiction, of course, I don't do anything but write the story. It's like a movie in my head. But then you go out into the world with it. And that's a very different thing. I do a lot of speaking, public speaking, a lot of speaking engagements for the books and the topics. And I think that that puts you out there in a way that you have to learn as part of being an author, is to go out and sort of spread the word.
So everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, students, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Wow, Joe, these are such interesting questions. Um, a true writer, someone who can't live without writing. Let me just give you a quick aside. I'm in this writing group, really great writing group. It's like 13 years old. And one of the famous writers in my group, whenever, we critique each other's works, and I'm supposed to make all these changes, not for my nonfiction. I don't workshop that, only my fiction.
Yeah.
This one person in the writing group always says, and that'll be great, easy fixes. And I always want to say, I'm not on that planet as a
Yeah.
writer. I don't consider easy anything an easy fix.
Yeah.
So the writing is, it's demanding, but in terms of perception, I would say that anyone close to me, from family to friends to even people who I guess are fans, I take it very seriously. So
Yeah.
they know I'm a serious writer.
Yeah. So Estranged is the latest novel. If anyone wants to pick that up or any of your other wonderful books, where's the best place to go?
Estranged is nonfiction, not a novel.
Right. Yeah,
And
sorry. I
but
apologize.
that's okay. And it's on Amazon and bookshop.org and
Okay.
Powell's. And I'd love to hear from people. So come to the website.
Okay. And then you said you have an event coming up?
Yeah, I'm here in Florida promoting, and I'm at the Boynton Beach Library today in
Okay.
the afternoon. And
Okay.
then next week, I go back to New York, and I'm doing Corner Bookstore on May 6th, and I'm doing the Perrott Library in Old Greenwich on May 7th. So lots of stuff coming up.
Okay, excellent. Susan, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your story. Best of luck. Have a great time at the event today.
So good to meet you. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely great to meet you. Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.